Immediately after seeing my photo shoot pictures, the gayness privately told me that he had an idea. The words he said will forever echo in my memory. He first told me that he had some experience in modeling once, which eventually led him to making a few porn videos. He said he can point me in the right direction, but I'm going to show you a site you can put these pictures on. It'll get you into the industry. Just don't blame me for what happens. The site was sexyjobs.com, and I sat in the idea for all of an hour as the three of us readied to depart. We were about to head up to North Conway to Kat's New Hampshire timeshare. If only I had it in me to wait until after the vacation to make my decision. I think I had taken the plunge the same day as I learned of the site, and I had just created what would later become known as my porn resume. All I can say is that it was an instant, overnight explosion. Literally. I was actually overwhelmed by the amount of calls I received, and physically had to turn my phone off because it wouldn't stop ringing. I was blindly taking offers to do both photo and video work, penciling the appointments onto my desk calendar. In just one day, the following month was so marked up that I actually had to sit for a second and wonder just how the hell I was going to accomplish all this. The calls came in so fast that I didn't even have the time to think about what I was getting myself into, and Kat was there the whole time, just watching me. The next day we set out for New Hampshire with my phone still ringing, and it didn't stop there, either. It continued for the entirety of our stay. I was getting offers from every aspect of the industry, as I'd come to call it. Offers from escorting agencies, modeling agencies, propositions for adult work, fetish films. If you can imagine it, I got a call for it. But of all those people, there's only one that I want to make a special note of, for it was probably the most important contact I'd ever make from a manager in New York City. Though some might refer to him as a pimp, after being in the industry for so many years, I can say for a fact that he was nothing of the sort, and I will refer to him as V. At first, I was actually trying to avoid the calls from those who wanted me to escort, as it all seemed a little too much to handle this early on. I wasn't even sure yet if this was right for me, so I told V that I would keep his number, but would need some time to think about his offer. He said no problem, that he understood, though in reality, he'd soon become a major player in my upcoming career change. It was just nuts. I was literally getting calls from all over the country, and in just 2 days, I had talked to producers from LA to NYC, and it was getting to Kat faster than the appointments were getting booked. Then, when we finally settled into our room, I was only going to anger her further by attempting the one activity I always tried to get going when there were 3 people alone together, and she didn't like the idea one bit. Why is it that the talk of a threesome always causes so many problems? It seemed as though I was about to push every one of her buttons all at the same time. Anywho, after a lot of convincing, I finally managed to get a threesome going, but I should have known better. The gayness, being gay, couldn't even get it up. However, the longer we tried, the more interested Kat seemed to be getting. Then, things went south. The gayness apparently had no problem going down on Kat, yet when I tried having him do me the flavor, he said that he couldn't, that it would be too gay even for him. What the hell? I actually ended up being the one to part ways after his comment, of all things. Seriously, what the fuck? Beyond that ordeal, we somehow managed to spend the next few days shopping and dining out, though I can't really recall much else of the trip as I had so much going on in my head. In retrospect, that threesome actually caused a much bigger rift in my relationship than I could have ever predicted. But not because I had just informed Kat that I again wanted to sleep with one of her friends. She actually didn't seem to mind that too much. It was getting her and the gayness to fuck, which ultimately came back to bite me in the arse. According to my archives, I ended up doing my first official video shoot 2 days after my return from New Hampshire with a man named Lee out in Pennsylvania. As I recall, he wanted me to come to his house, which was almost a 5-hour drive away. So that just meant that I was going to have to take yet another day off from work. I still had that shitty Volvo, however the car was on its way out and was beginning to overheat. I remember this because once I got about halfway through Pennsylvania, the coolant light began blinking at me. I pulled over in a McDonald's parking lot to fill the radiator by running a large soda cup back and forth from the bathroom to the car. I had run it dry and the engine actually started to seize up. Then to top it off, I also killed the battery while trying to restart it. At least one of the benefits of being dressed for an adult video shoot with my hood open was that many a man were guaranteed to stop and offer their assistance. So after nearly a half hour of sending horny passerbys on their way, I finally got someone who had a pair of jumper cables. I somehow managed to get the car started, but was now 2 hours late to my first job. Just as my shoot with Jim, I wasn't really sure what to expect when I finally got there. And because this interaction was slightly more involved than my previous photo spread, I told Lee that before we did anything, we first had to get something quick to eat, as I wanted some time to get acquainted. It actually wasn't a bad idea for a number of reasons, and for the longest time into this new career, I'd make everyone take me out to some place public prior to filming. After all, it wasn't like I'd been hired to build a fence. This was gonna get a little personal, not to mention the added safety factor. I truly did want the best results, regardless of what I was doing. So Lee and I talked and got to know each other. He was a man of many talents, and a Sagittarian to boot. He was a pretty decent overall guy, a little older than I was used to, but quite sexual. As I'd soon learn, there's a whole varied world of work available to talent, as we're called in the industry. The homemade porno. This is actually a rather common request with a varying degree of professionalism involved, and it ranges from the average guy with a camcorder all the way to the amateur studio. There was a homemade porn explosion after Paris Hilton's One Night in Paris video surfaced, which along with all the previous celebrity sex tapes before it, caused many a man to try and duplicate, thus creating a thriving business run from the basements of many individuals. As for what I was about to do with Lee, this actually wasn't a bad setting for my first paid fucking on camera. Lee had humored my wish to be taken out prior to doing anything kinky, and even allowed me into some of his personal life, which was all I really needed. Contrary to the professional mindset, I chose not to set a time limit on the event. My price was fixed, no matter how long it took, and given my intuitive nature, I naturally was just as interested in the filming process itself. We did a quick photo spread prior to getting naughty, which is actually the way most people begin. Do some photos, get the girl comfortable, make her feel attractive, then lose the clothes to start filming. At least Lee had several high-end cameras situated on tripods to get a varying degree of angles. I was pretty psyched. I even made a few suggestions as to where to set up the hardware. Lee and I eventually did our thing, and I got paid handsomely, and afterwards, I simply went on my way. It was an interesting experience, especially considering how nervous you can get when you knowingly meet someone for the first time for such an act. But at the same time, it's that very rush which makes it all so exciting. The money at the end was just the icing on the cake. Besides, it wasn't like I'd just done anything that I hadn't already done by my third year in high school, less the getting paid part. Luckily, my car did make it home, but it was now time to start looking for another one. I ended up dumping that shitty Volvo and buying an even shittier late 80s Mercury Cougar as my next ride from Kat's cousin. So there I was at work the next day, contemplating. I had so much to think about while sitting there at my desk doing nothing. Kat's increasing anger with me, only but a subconscious blurb in the back of my mind. I knew things were about to change, but I wasn't exactly sure how. And considering the way I had overlooked her role in all this, she was surely about to remind me. Perhaps it was the pictures I then took on our bed, which were the straws that finally did the camel in.